pre-hearing to order. We have a statutorily required hearing at the tail end of our budget process. Given our tough times, it made a lot of sense to us to hear comment as we're formulating the budget. So from a revenue perspective, we're predicating our work today on state aid coming in at the governor's budget level. And due to a number of factors, that represents $100,000 less in revenue to us, despite the fact you've heard on the news that Chapter 78 is going up. So our state aid, our cherry sheet, state aid that's where we settle our net school choice, our sending charter school. We get transportation reimbursement. I think in the mix is the old hold harmless, where a past establishment of a local aid formula cut rural schools assistance substantially, and we've never been lowered from that. But sometimes when we get good news, we don't get anything out of it. So we're not being aggressive on our revenue picture. And we've stated a desire to develop a budget that does not increase assessments to the towns more than 2.5%. That's pretty challenging. We may want to look at adjusting that stance a bit to at least take into account changes in minimum contribution that are the result of tech school versus Pioneer affecting assessments, and also try and recognize what at a municipal level we'd see as new growth. That is to say, if a school's population, if a town's school-age population changed substantially relative to the others, maybe it isn't arguable that they shouldn't pay more than a 2.5% increase. But we've got, yes?
Is that reflected in the minimum contribution requirements or calculations? Tabulation changes? It's already been reflected.
Could be. I'm not perhaps as knowledgeable as you. The
minimum contribution is based on growth, your town, values of your town property, and growth.
Student population average over whatever.
I don't know, because they really make it much more complex with that, but the student population does affect the calculation.
You have in front of you the familiar, if you've been singing from this hymn book for a while, of allocation of assessments. Do folks have the third one yet?
Yeah.
Okay. So,
David, can I interrupt for
yes,
a minute?
please.
Please remind people to date these because they aren't dated
Okay.
for reference.
Yeah, date them, and I'm going to suggest that you label the sheet that looks like this, that in the bottom right cell says 7.63%. This particular one, bottom right, 7.63%. This is how things would allocate if the budgets that we heard at the previous meeting, which amounted to some substantial increases, were adopted. Okay, so I've labeled mine. This is what the school committee wants.
The school committee?
Labeling that number one.
Sure.
Are we saying the school committee?
That is.
School administration.
No, just.
Well, yeah, you're right. You're right. This is what the principals proposed. The next set, if you look at that same cell, 2.74%. This results from $400,000 of cuts to the budget that the administration submitted.
Say that number one more time.
$400,000. $400,000 in cuts need to obtain. And even in that state, Leiden's assessment goes up 4.56%, and Bernardston's 2.42, Northfield's 2.97. And then finally, this doesn't take it all the way to not more than 2.5, but it is close. The bottom right cell is 0.47%. This one requires $680,000 of cuts, and it does not go all the way to having no town see their assessment go up more than 2.5%, as Leiden's is 2.78. But it's close. So $680,000 would be in cuts off of the budgets that we heard from the principals last week would be required. The last thing I want to tell you before I see if the committee has anything to comment before we hear your views is that we have put $50,000 in the general fund expense for school lunch salaries, I believe. And this is our attempt to make sure that we do not operate our school revolving lunch at a deficit any longer. We're asking our member towns in another town meeting action for a supplemental appropriation. They need assurance that this is not going to come back ever again.
So in all of these budget scenarios, that 50,000 for salaries is in here?
Well, it's in there, except that in all but one of those, we need to make cuts. 400,000 in one instance, 680,000 in the other. I will pledge to fight for keeping money in the school lunch program. We cannot continue.
50 is about a third to a quarter of what the actual salary schedule is for the cafeteria, according to what you passed out from us. So you're not going to cover all of them.
Well, we're not going to cover the deficit, but we're going to make sure we don't.
I'm not asking you to cover the deficit. I'm asking if you're covering the total payroll.
We're not covering the total payroll with general fund expenditure, but we believe that today we are at a place where we are not losing money any longer, so that I believe that adding anything in, and I'm not saying this to suggest that we add less, because we need some comfort that this is not going to go off the rails again.
So we had an audit of the financial part of the food lunch program, and when the auditor was in, I don't think we've gotten the actual report yet, but the auditor said that moving forward, if we had a line that had at least $30,000 in it, then that would cover about what he thinks that we're going to be short at the end of this fiscal year. So that was his recommendation, and then I think at least, talking to other committee members, we put it up a little higher to make sure. And in addition to that, we've always paid the benefits in our regular budget. We didn't ever take the benefits through the food service program.
So at that rate, it would take 4 or 5 years to get rid of the deficit.
Yeah, 4, 5, or 6. Lois?
I don't know if this is the appropriate time or not, but you mentioned the fact that you want to assess this deficit to the towns and have an article on our town meeting warrant. We'd like to see it spread over possibly 3 years, rather than, it's quite a hit all at once for us. And so we'd like, I don't know, Bernardston have that same idea?
We had the same idea. In fact, I think you got a letter from our selectmen to that effect, or maybe you haven't gotten it yet. And as far as the finance committee is concerned, I want to see your plan for getting rid of the deficit, or I won't recommend paying that off.
Okay, anybody on the committee have anything to add to this setup before we formally go to comment? All right, Bob.
But David, I mean, here's what I'm saying. You said you made about $300 from say September through the end of December, roughly. I mean, it's not really true because you're carrying some money over in the summertime to pay some of that personnel that should have gotten more money in the first part of the year, right? But now you were saying it could be 30,000? That's what the estimate is, that the lunch program could go in deficit this year?
It's what I just heard and you just heard. Yes, sir.
When we get the report, we'll share it. That was his initial,
Even with the changes that you've made, huh?
yeah, that's what he said.
Go ahead.
Did he state anything if we continued the way we were, what the deficit would have been?
30,000.
That's with the changes, I thought.
No, the audit was for the year that ended, right? The
Right,
one you're in.
right, the one that he audited, he said, first, get rid of this big, they carry on the book so that they show that instead of just saying start with like 10 or 20 bucks or something in there, and then you'll see the accurate picture of where that, but with that big dollar amount just floating through the system, it makes it very murky to see. But so he said that, and then he said that moving forward, you should put in $30,000 because that's about what he calculated would be what you'd need to balance it out to a zero annually.
And that included moving the salaries into there?
No, he just said to move 30. He didn't say move salaries. He just said move, we're going to be short 30, but why are we going to be short 30? Probably because of salaries. Because he did.
Because of food costs, because of any cost.
Right,
Bottom
was the
line is going to
auditor's
be.
report written before you made these changes in the fall?
Let's be clear, this is not our annual
Oh.
fiscal audit. This is a audit of our school lunch alone. Is that correct?
The financial piece of school lunch alone, yes.
Okay.
This was not part of
As
it.
of the end of the last fiscal year, so as of June 30th.
Correct.
Right.
So he hasn't seen, or he or she haven't seen the changes we've made in this current year.
Right,
Right.
Right.
It's
Okay,
too early
that
to
makes me
analyze
feel
that.
better.
that's correct.
Good point.
So that was for fiscal 17.
I'm sorry. I
Fiscal,
just-
yeah.
Yes, Sue?
Do all the budget scenarios include a half-time superintendent?
I believe so.
Okay. Do any of them include a half-time business manager?
Yes.
They
All.
all
All
do.
of them. Do any of them include a curriculum coordinator?
We also put it in. Currently, that is in the proposed budget that has that
It's in the budget we
630,000.
want
Right.
version.
The
The cuts have not been identified to cut 400,000 or to cut 680,000.
Which one does this relate to?
I'm gonna let Ruth.
If you,
Which one?
okay, so, because I know you like to see last year versus this year, this was a budget that we all put together, and it's done by the school, the district, the central office. So if you look at the,
I'm just wondering which one of these scenarios relates to this document?
well, the scenario that we would like to pick is the one, number 3, I think David had to say it right, that shows an increase of 7.85% for Bernardston, 8.39 for
I just want to make
Leiden.
sure I know which one this relates to.
Yeah,
That's the one.
that's the one
With the
that
idea.
you would get everything you wanted, or what we would like.
Yeah. Like the full ask.
Okay.
Okay, what percentage is that again?
That was number 1.
7.63.
Yeah, that's the aggregate total.
And so this includes an assistant superintendent plus a half-time superintendent?
What do you, I think it's $75,000 for a superintendent. And then we put $50,000 in for a business manager.
Okay. What about assistant superintendent?
Full superintendent is in here.
That position is in as it has been.
Well, 111,000 for an assistant superintendent. I'm just saying that's a full-time position, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, assistant
Yeah.
superintendent.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how it could be less than this year. I'll bet anything it's 116,000 next year. The assistant superintendent?
No.
FY19, it's level funded. On this
That's
one,
Negotiating our contract. Why do we
When
need
does
an
it-
assistant superintendent?
It's my question.
When does her
Would anyone like to answer that?
I think it's amazing to look at Gail's job description and her description to us of what she does for the district. I think it's a catch-all phrase, assistant superintendent, that covers a multitude of roles.
I
So
don't
if
agree with that.
she was very clear with Pat, when Pat requested her job description. She's doing a lot for the district. She's wearing many hats.
I looked at that same one, Sue, and I saw a lot on that in her job description that could easily be managed by a business manager. I'm just saying.
We have a full-time facilities manager too, and she's supposedly overseeing that. That seems to be done.
Right.
So what I'm hearing is the committee should take a look at that.
We have a food service
Yeah,
director,
there's just
she's
a lot of
overseeing
roles in
that
that job description.
Mhm.
too, with the duplicate jobs.
Have you seen that job description, David?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
And I also looked at the other one that Ruth handed us with the duties of everyone in the central
That
office.
does the job, the
That
things
bridge,
that she does.
yeah.
but
Did you look at that one?
We will likely be challenged by going to half-time superintendent, half-time business manager, so cutting additional central office staff, and as we look at functions, could be really challenging. We've gone from 4 to 3, I think,
For what?
We had
we had
administrators
four
at the high school, now we have
key,
2.
yeah. So we've made a number of staff cuts, and as others pick up the slack, it appears some of it goes to the assistants.
Right, I think probably taking a look at, once you get the top positions organized, I think that you need to kind of look globally at how
Sure.
things have just kind of gone in a direction without, I think, a lot of planning and foresight. And that I think that with new people coming in, you know, and they're probably, you know, as soon as you can nail that down, they might have some really good ideas about how you can be much more efficient. And also, I know that the committee's been looking at, you know, sharing services with other districts.
But that's a ways off.
Huh? Well, my recommendation would be find somebody that would share the food service with you,
I
because
believe Turner's
we
Falls is.
don't have anyone that's an expert that really understands the regs and guidelines of that program. And it's really, given where we are with it, I think that having somebody really knowledgeable and expertise can keep us out of water, but also maybe get us to do things that are different. I mean, we've tried certain things, but now I think maybe having an expert would make sense.
And I believe Mike Sullivan mentioned that at the initial meeting for the grant, that they could easily share their food service person with Pioneer. Am I right, Sue? Did you hear Mike Sullivan
Yeah.
say that?
It's definitely looking at what makes logical sense in terms of getting jobs done across those difficult districts.
Further on in here, I see on the second page, it says new about, at the bottom, food service, and it's got 50,000. What's that?
The food
Page
service,
2.
Yeah,
that's the
food
amount of
service.
money we put in to cover for the
Okay.
the
All right.
overage. Yeah,
Okay.
that's
All right.
what the 50,000 is.
All right.
Jane?
Let me just come up there and go through this with you.
Yeah, probably.
How come Health and Life is going down that much?
Fewer employees.
And the increases in the health insurance is included in there, and did you include an increment for dental going up, which we haven't heard yet?
Yeah, we've done an estimate based on, you know, the information we have. And then what we always do is we have two family plans that we aren't planning for. We have that as additional in here.
Thank you.
So I had asked Ruth to simply pull some invoices for health insurance for the past few months, because we're not having a lot of signups or people leave, and use that to predict what this year's cost would be. And we have a 4.7% increase with HCOG and a 7% with, what's the name of those other guys?
GIC?
GIC. 7, is that right?
Yeah, it is, and
No, that's all
I
right.
Might have
just,
been points.
no, it's 7%, and well, I don't think we're gonna have enough, we're gonna be right on that fringe of school choice revolving account is where we've been taking all the retiree health, because it's just easy and it's quick. And it comes to about $1 million of what we end up spending, but I think we only got $90,000 this year, plus we have about
900?
well, it might have been 900, but we also had 100 and something, 150,000 or so left in school choice in the revolving. So what we're going to do is we're going to dry up that whole account this year.
So this insurance doesn't include retirees?
No, the one that's on this is
Active employees?
everything to do with active employees, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Can I ask a question?
Please do.
On the first page, there's a zeroed out superintendent's travel union and also professional administrative dues and subscriptions. Is it smart to zero out those two things? Should we put some money in them? I mean, I hate to say that, but
Well,
if we're going to have a person in that position, we've got to come up with some money to pay for their travel, I would think.
But not as much as it has been.
Not as much as it has been, no, but I'm wondering if it's smart to zero it out.
well, and if
Let's
you-
note
if-
that question, and
Yeah.
I would like to entertain ideas about where we would cut, to cut 400,000 or to cut
Right.
680,000.
What is school committee expense? What does that cover?
Bonds, your dues to MASC,
Just-
and we're
How much
We're
are
not
those?
bonded, but you mean like the
like,
director and officer
all I can tell you is that
liability.
we go through that and then some every year.
Is part of that paying for our secretary?
Yes, yep, the recorders.
Okay,
and
that I can understand.
Well, MASC is not inexpensive.
I know that.
How much is
I know
that?
It's got to be over 1,000, 250. I don't have that number off the top of my head.
That went from $6,000 to $26,500 between 2015 and 2016. And I've never understood.
Probably
what
because it was
is.
under budgeted.
Could you just?
Oh,
itemate
but
that out
also
for
there
us,
was-
like, show us what it's actually going toward at some point? I'm still curious.
Yeah, we can pull the
That's-
invoices.
Any comments from others? Yes.
First, I'd like to thank Pat Shearer, Superintendent Gail Healy, for getting the sixth grade thing on the agenda for the last school committee meeting. I had a call to go on, so I wasn't able to take the whole school committee, but I did watch the video of the meeting. I was glad to see the discussion on what took place regarding the sixth grade. And there was multiple things that was discussed, which I was glad to see. There were a couple items that were on there that weren't quite accurate, but I go back to when I had the discussion before about if we move sixth grade to the middle school, there would be savings, but there would be benefits to the kids as far as educational things. So I think as far as streamlining, I think if we, school committee, looked at that, put a group together to discuss it and look at avenues to make the adjustments and see what the savings would be there. And possibly move and lighten Bernardston, the students there. I know there's a district, the towns have an agreement to have the kids taught the hometowns. I know there's a big thing that has to be done there for the changes. But if we don't start discussions now, that could possibly take effect 2 years, maybe 3 years from now, which with the student population going in the direction it's going, if it doesn't start going up, we're going to have to probably do something to streamline so we're not making cuts up here where the kids are on their last years of their schooling, where it's really most beneficial. And to improve those kids that are in 6th grade, if they come here, there's going to be more opportunities for them in this facility than from the facilities that they're actually at. Not to say that the schools that they're in now aren't doing a good job, but I think we can offer more if we really look into it and possibly make some budget reductions. You know, that's just how I see it. I know that there's discussion that, you know, the kids might not be mature. Well, there's pros and cons to that. There's different studies that are for it and against it. I know the Boston school system thing was mentioned at the last meeting. I actually pulled that article up. The stuff that was said is not factual. The reasons that they're making changes are totally different than what we're dealing with here, and it had nothing to do with the kids' maturity or K through 8th grade. It had more to do with the school system down there. They're trying to consolidate because they have 20 different grade levels throughout the whole city. And the articles in the Boston Globe, I pulled it up, I've read it. Just to get the facts, I think they wanted to read more on that, but it was more about consolidation, and they wanted to have the school, the kids make a transition, you know, only twice in their school career, because they're different. Even in this one big city, there's different avenues of the way they do the schooling in the city. So, but I think that's a whole different thing compared to what we're dealing with here.
Did you say, I want to make sure I understood you, did you say that as far as moving the 6th grade into the school, it might not result in cost savings, but it could have educational benefits?
Well, you're going to have some savings. Where it ends up, that's why we have to look into it. I mean, if you close a facility down, because if you move 6th grade, and that provides openings in the other elementary schools where the 6th grade classes were, like Bernardston has 2 6th grade classes. That's going to create 2 rooms. So with Leiden only having 33 kids total at this point, and some of them are school choice, I know we have to treat the school choices like they're our own students. Those numbers may be changing. I think we have to provide a market for school choices to want to come here. If 6th grade came here like they do at some of the other communities, actually Greenfield has 5th, 6th, and 7th at the middle school, and it's 8th through 12th at the high school. And I know that some of the students that should be going here have school choiced out and are going there now, just because there's more opportunity. Same with charter schools. A lot of those are 6th through 8th grade.
Not around here, they're not.
I'm just...
That would affect our Franklin County students.
We're having a hearing. We're not really trying to bore in
From
the
what I-
truth of anything, but everybody out there gets to be heard before we continue with our budget process.
This is based just on what I've read, but I think, getting back to my point, I think we need to establish, you know, maybe not right now, but establish a committee to look at something down the road in the next year or two to work on looking at the pros and cons to this.
I think the Heart Committee is looking into that, and I think that's definitely on their radar. I don't know if there's anybody here. Sue, you're on the Heart Committee.
It's
Aren't
not
you-
on the Heart Committee's radar, it's
Oh,
on the
it's not.
Curriculum and Personnel Committee's radar, though.
Okay.
When
And
it
you're saying
came
Kate.
up at our last school committee meeting, Jean reached out to me and said, you know, could we have a discussion about that, the Curriculum and Personnel Committee and the principals? So that'll happen in March 6th, I believe. So it'll be another,
Will she put an email out to anybody that...
it'll be on the posted agenda, yeah, and, you know, it'll be a good discussion.
I mean, I like what they did with the parents and the teachers and the feedback in the last meeting. I think something similar to that would be nice to maybe look at for the sixth graders, and have parent involvement, have meetings at each school like they did, just to see about what direction the parents actually want to go into.
Bob?
David, on this big one, my colleagues just noted Leiden isn't included.
Okay.
Leiden is missing from this one.
Mine's missing on that one.
On all of them.
And if you have it, is there going to be a principal in Leiden next year, or is Bernardston?
Okay, so well, I do have it. I tried to, instead of printing it online, I tried to print it one at a time. I guess karma when I just think online. Bob is going to do both schools.
Is it different from what you passed out last week?
Is it different?
Yeah. Did you make changes to?
Oh, no, there's no changes to what it was before.
Because I have last week's, if you want to make copies for everybody.
Well, what's the
There are
salary,
changes.
principal salary on it? We've probably made changes.
Yeah.
So the BES principal's still going to travel to Leiden?
Yes.
So is the committee gonna
And
consider-
we increased his, this year we paid him 10,000 because we thought it was just going to be a temporary. And he's negotiating at 20,000 for doing both schools, for moving forward. And so that increase in Leiden, other than that, there really wasn't any increases. I mean, the teachers had steps up, but a lot of those teachers are on the top step, so they would have gotten it. So I think essentially it was about the same, except for that dollar amount for Bob.
We had 45 in there last week.
Oh, that was the same amount then? It does-
Last year. was
No.
Put in for this year.
Last year it was 52, this year it says 45.
Right, and he took his whole salary and tried to split it, so there was, more equitable. He does maybe 2 days up there, tried to look at his time.
So is there going to be some consideration by the committee to consider the same kind of a move with Warwick and Northfield? For
Are you
savings
recommending
there?
that?
I am.
Yeah, that's what we're here to hear.
And
One other question while I'm at it, if I could, on the Bernardston's budget, under the teachers line, BES salaries for teachers, there's only a $4,000 increase. And I know if they haven't hired another teacher currently yet, they're doing that for the next week or so. So are these numbers that are showing in fiscal year 18 reflecting that new teacher they're hiring in Bernardston currently right now, real time? Is that why there's only a $4,000 increase? Because my mind says there's going to be one teacher up in Bernardston over current staffing. We're increasing the teacher staff in Bernardston right now.
Yes, there's a teacher being hired short-term to address a significant need in a classroom, and to also see if having 2 teachers instead of the Department of Education and the thinking around paraprofessionals is that it's statewide, that we just, a lot of the way we solve summer problems in classrooms is to hire IAs. Not one-on-ones, but there's a lot of those for special eds, but for classroom behavior management and those other kinds of things. And the research shows that if you have 2 teachers that are certified teachers, that the outcomes for students are better, that the program for students can be more creative and different, because instead of, a class of 24, 25, one teacher trying to manage those with some behaviors and some issues that are coming up through the ranks with our children, that we might have better outcomes. So given them what's going on right now, I thought it was an opportunity to use this as a pilot to see if in fact this makes sense, just for this year.
So that number's not carrying through in this 19 budget then?
No, because there would have been a loss of a teacher, and so no, it's not going to impact the 19 unless somehow the results of this, which they're documenting, and they're using research-based methods, that we see a significant improvement in all students and in access to programming. So I think, you know, it's probably not going to move through, it's not in the budget, but it's being left to the principal and the teacher or teachers that are doing that, and they're also going to be inclusive in sharing what they're doing with other teachers in a way to see if any of this makes sense down the road. So this is really purely an academically based pilot.
So where did that extra cash come from to pay this teacher in this current budget?
Well, we're going to have to hire anyhow, and so we
We're
reduced.
hiring an IA to a teacher is a difference in salary.
No, we actually reduced the IAs in that room just for that purpose to see, because I was being requested to add more IAs to that room, and it just
So you're
doesn't
saying
make
it's
sense.
an even dollar swap?
No, it
There's
was not
increased
even
cost?
$1 swap.
So where's the extra money coming from for this current
It
budget?
came from the budget. I can't
We
tell
have
you what
extra
line
money
at the
in the
moment.
budget?
Huh?
We have extra money in the budget?
We always have a little bit of money in the budget because I try not to overspend the budget
So
each
you know what my
year.
next question is going to be?
What?
Dump a little bit on the school bill.
Yeah, no, I know. But in my estimation, children come first.
Ruth sent me a reference to an academic publication months ago, which I read, which discussed this, and I tend to look at everything from a dollar and cents standpoint, and so I'm going to bring you that part of the argument, and that is that employer costs, health insurance, and benefits are so expensive that the marginal cost of hiring a teacher instead of an aide, it can be relatively small, and you can get a lot more for your money. So that's what's being tested here. I can see why someone would be as confounded and think it as absurd as the notion that we can, in Warwick, cut our salt use by using straight salt instead of mixing it with sand. But the superintendent's trying it, and certainly something to track and something to think about, the value of a trained, credentialed teacher in the classroom, instead of an aide.
I'm assuming that all of this is evidence-based.
So, we have Jane.
You said Bob was splitting his salary between Leiden and Bernardston, and yet that line item in the Bernardston budget has gone up by 2,000 plus.
How much?
Well, it's showing up as 93,373,
Not quite.
and I want his job if he's going to get that, plus the Leiden one, which is 45.
No, that can't be
The
right.
45 should come off of Bernardston's, right?
Right,
It's a duplication. So that's a correction that needs to be made.
Yeah.
So,
It didn't come out. It didn't come out on Pearl Road. I can send you a copy. Principal. Yeah, you're right, because his salaries,
That's maybe his total salary, but that's not.
right, so but his total salary here, it went from 91,542 to 93,373. That was a contractual obligation of a increase in the next year.
Right.
When you signed a contract. So Pearl Road shouldn't be 40, it should be 20. Because that was the additional money that we said over and above for doing the two schools. Does that make sense?
So this year it's 10. And the budget was 52, but we didn't use that. So we
Correct.
had 42 to move
Right.
someplace else. And next year, we're going to have 20 there. And he's
Yes.
also got
Yes.
a line item for travel money back and forth
Yeah.
between the two
Yeah.
schools.
plus. Is there a reason why?
Thank you.
I'm looking on to Warwick, and I don't see any figures for fiscal year 19 as we do in the rest of them.
Say that again?
I don't see any figures for fiscal year 19. I see just fiscal year 18. Is that because she has, in Warwick, Is that because she has not requested anything different from what she has this year?
That's the way
That
she
would-
presented her budget.
That's what I'm just wondering. I just want to verify that that's right.
What page was that? Oh, right here.
There's a whole column.
Yes, yes, we added those columns to each of the principals, and she chose not to use them.
But it's labeled wrong.
So she's
So
requesting
what
the
says
same,
18 should say 19 here?
should say.
Yeah, what happened to Warwick?
So there have to
Exactly.
be cuts if she's
That was Pat's question.
requesting the same amounts. There have to
Well,
be
I'll
cuts
tell you,
somewhere because there are increases.
The thing she passed out last week
Yeah.
says fiscal year 17 as the title, but it
That's
does
why
say
my-
fiscal year 19 on top of the dollar amounts. I'll tell you if there's
That's
a
why
thing
my
in it.
question, I was just a little fuzzy.
Would folks indulge me with a comment that relates to this? We
It
should
is
talk
not-
about fiscal year 19, not 18, 19, not 16, 17. It confuses anybody that does municipal. We're talking about fiscal year
You
19.
just
It
have to be a
loses-
translator, David, if you're in.
That's the end of my rant.
The total on Warwick that we got tonight is different from the total that we got it's the same, I'm sorry, because there was a correction,
So,
verbal correction
So
on the total
what,
from last
we
week.
spent yesterday, the principals and I, the administration and I sat, instead, we came in for the snow day and we worked for 6 hours and went through each one of these lines, and they set them up the way that they wanted to, and they talked about it and made decisions, and so it truly is a reflection of what the administrators wanted. It truly wasn't thrown together, although trying to get it from each of them in the same format was challenging.
So
So
we
to
don't-
answer Pat's question, it should say FY 19 on that.
okay, so that's FY 19 instead of, didn't she request pretty much the same this coming year as she did this school year?
You mean for fiscal
I
19, the
believe
same as
she,
fiscal
it was just
18?
a one change of
Yeah, it was-
one thing.
It was
I
very
believe.
little change.
Before we
Yeah.
vote on this, let's see the FY 18 against the 19.
Yeah, that's
fine.
Consistency.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, yeah,
I've got it.
this is just a work in progress too, don't forget, because from what you say, depending on these forms, we're gonna have
Roll
to
it right here.
potentially make cuts.
Yes, her fiscal 19 is at 725, 821.
Sue,
We've been having a little bit of discussion about substitutes at Pioneer and discovered that we had actually had a couple of teachers that were in the subline because the school year started and we plugged people into jobs. So I'm still noticing that there's a $20,000 increase in the substitute line for Pioneer. It goes, well, not 20, but it goes from 35,000 to 50, and I'm just wondering, is that because we're continuing to pay those people as subs next year?
We always seem to have those people. It's not like anybody in particular. We always seem to end up with at least one or two long-term subs. Somebody gets injured. We just have, the way we balance the budget in the past, when we have to cut things and we don't really want to cut anything else, we cut things that we cut
Hope
that.
we won't have to spend money on.
When we cut on this, sublines, but we're still spending it, so it
You've
doesn't
seen
make
that we
any
just keep
sense.
repeatedly having to spend it.
Right, so every single principal put more money in their sublines.
Okay. Just a couple lines down from that, the special needs instructional assistants. I know we cut that really to the bone last year at Pioneer. It goes from 160,317 to 225,451. Is that putting some people back in place?
It appears as though people have been coming back in, but I also think that there was some money put in to have somebody work with the IAs to help them better utilize their time with students. It's at the elementary level, it makes sense for them to be in there with kids all the time. But at the middle high school, you would be looking, unless they needed a one-to-one, you would be looking for more independence over time and it appears as though in the past, the IA stays with the student for a very long time, maybe even to graduation, and that's really not necessarily the most healthy way to, so thinking about restructuring and maybe having some IAs that have expertise in math, be in the math realm. So it's not, it's not written in the IP that they have to be with them for 2 or 3 blocks a day. It's kind of a little bit, for lack of a better word, an archaic way that they're implementing the IAs. And so I think having somebody with that group really train them in certain ways, then we can be more efficient and also hope that we can cut down the reliance on IAs and have students a little more independent.
So it sounds like you're working on your system of multi-tiered supports,
Yes.
addressing all that, but still I don't understand why the number's going up. Is that because someone was hired to work with the IAs? Is that what that
It
increase is
appears
there?
that things were written IEPs to get that to happen.
Go ahead.
Didn't Chris say that this year we had to put more instructional assistants in for the SPED program?
Wouldn't they be in the sped line then?
They are the SPED lines, and those are different programs. Those are over here, so,
Okay, because weren't you looking at the SPED?
It says
No,
special
that-
needs instructional assistance.
right.
And I thought Chris
160
had to
up to
add some during
225.
the year
That's
this year.
Chris did, but
And
those.
that part of that is reflected, isn't it, in
Yes.
FY19?
And Chris has those in her budget, and she has put some of her in the grant she gets. But I think that what we're looking at is to try to reduce at the middle high school level the dependency on IAs. That essentially.
They need to
But
stop
to
you.
your answer, that they still get written into IEPs, which then we're obligated to have them. Not that they're bad either, I mean, it's just different. It's kind of like,
No,
we're trying to pilot with elementary.
I get it.
This is kind of confusing to me. The IAs are up because we're using them less? That's what I just heard.
We like to use.
So
Not
we
be
put more money
dependent
in the
on-
line? That's something we want to be less dependent on.
Okay, well,
Why?
No, you're
but
But
if
Pretty
the money,
significant increase.
if the money's put in the line because they're, on an
They're written
IEP,
into
it was written that
plans.
they need an IAA for so many times part of the day, then we have to oblige that.
Okay. Can someone speak to the more than 10% increase in teacher salaries at Pioneer?
And Pioneer? Is it? Okay.
Went from 1.8 million to 2 million in this budget.
I was surprised by that 1.8 million number because I had 2,173,000 at the end of my last record keeping around the teacher salaries at Pioneer
what year was that for?
last year. So I don't
What, last year is in fiscal,
just FY18. Yeah.
Which is
I've
the
never
current
seen the
year.
1833. I had other numbers in here.
Question mark there too.
118 to 2. So that's $400,000 increase. I can get you a list of the staffing. I think that's going to be the easiest way to do it.
That's a $200,000 increase.
Yeah.
yeah.
200 to 18?
It's
1.8 to
120 is
1,833.
200,000.
So I do know that in this fiscal year, there were some people added for some courses. I don't know the whole it's really, I don't want to go down the road. I know there were some people added, there were some part-time people added. But I don't know exactly what the positions were, so I think it's better if we can get the information from Jean and then get it to you. Because I don't want to misspeak, but I know there was some additions for academics.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I see a new library instructional assistant for 17,000. Is that in place of a librarian, or is that somebody to assist?
That's been in there.
No, it
No,
says
it isn't.
new.
It's just below that one that we just did.
0 and 18.
0
Right,
last
right.
year,
17,
this year,
18.
17 this coming year.
New library instructional assistant. 7,000, why did she want that? That is something-
17,000.
Yeah, it's something she wanted that was new. I don't recall exactly, but I can ask her. I
Yeah.
mean, we talked about a lot of things. Megan, you don't remember, do you?
I don't recall that
Yeah.
conversation
Right,
about a library.
okay, thanks.
I figure
So,
there had to be a reason. And how about English textbooks? Do we have a series that we're
Wow.
adding that we haven't had before? What's that? That goes from
6,500 increase.
1,500 to 8,000.
I'm not sure of that detail, but I do know that Jean goes out and asks her teachers. And so I'm sure that one of the teachers asked. I feel like it might have been Claire Brennan with her, the AP courses and things, but I'm not positive. So that's another Jean question.
Also, the principal's salary went down.
Yeah. Yes, the principal salary and the assistant principal salary.
Both
Both
went
less.
down from FY 18 to 19, unless they're supposed to be just the opposite.
Huh, good question. But if they're willing to work for that,
Well, I'm just wondering if they got transposed.
they might have, but,
If they were hired at less than was budgeted.
yeah, I don't.
But this is going from fiscal 18 to fiscal 19.
But they were hired after the fiscal 18 budget was
Right.
adopted.
The 108,070 number is the number I had from last year.
That's, yeah.
Yeah, but then it's this fiscal 19, it's
82,416 is also the number
107.
I had from last year.
Can you check that?
Yeah, we'll note that.
Yeah, I've got that.
I will say that at the CMP meeting, Claire Brennan talked about needing additional books for the new AP
Yeah,
class.
I remember
I
that,
don't know
but-
how much of that is that.
Right.
So David, in here is a full-time curriculum coordinator or no?
No. Halftime, wasn't it?
I believe
Halftime,
it.
yeah, there's
They
a
asked
full,
for
no,
full.
there is a full-time in there, half-time for Pioneer and half-time for the elementary school.
Oh, all right.
That was right, right, Megan?
Yeah,
Okay.
high school's in the PVRS budget, and the other one is in the district share budget, I believe.
The curriculum coordinator?
Right, so 50/50.
Okay, but I'm also
And
looking at
that was
Okay.
50,000 each.
There's three of us here sitting here wondering about guidance. I remember from the presentation last week that there was additional staff desired. This is $90,000 increase.
Oh, yeah, you know what that is? It's the career and college readiness and doing a program with, I think mostly the 7th and 8th graders to get them ready that it's a need to shift, you know, how we had kids at Arnold Mass Core and the importance of taking certain courses and being ready, and so that's what that position is for.
new position.
So that adds a third, is that reflected with a third position? At $90,000 for guidance counselors?
Total? Yeah.
Yes, at
It was
$90,000.
$89,000.
128 to 217, it's 90,000. 89.
Yeah.
89.
It's gotta
For
be
one
a
position?
new full-time person.
It seems like that's more than what the ones that are currently there are getting.
I think,
Could be their increase in salary and,
right, because
But
both
that's
of the
still a
people are
lot.
new and within the steps.
Is that strictly a salary line, or might there be program expenses in there?
No, a salary line should be a salary line. So I'd have to take a look at what,
The breakdown is?
yeah, because it could be some part-time person doing something as well.
So yes, that,
Could be part-time, lots of stuff.
also looks like the nurse's salary is up 9,000.
Yes.
There's a
That's a
technician's
pretty
salary,
substantial
from
raise.
40 to 63.
nurse's salary.
$8,789 increase.
Yeah.
What was it?
The nurse.
Nurse's salary
is
for
up on
Pioneer.
almost 10, 9,000.
From last year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
She actually negotiated more prior to that budget, so probably that the FY '18 is really not reflecting what she's getting paid this
How
year.
did she negotiate more if we had only budgeted so much?
Well, there were a lot of compelling reasons why her load had been going up substantially with regard to some of the more severe kids that are coming up to the middle pioneer.
And these kids don't have one-on-one.
No, no.
Sue?
Same page, other student SCT supplies.
What page is that?
STEM,
So is that just for Pioneer, or is that?
no, they all budgeted a little bit.
They all
and
budgeted
yeah,
some money
they're
for
trying to
supplies
keep
to
that.
implement STEM?
Yeah, they're trying to implement the strategic plan they
Yep, I
spent a
remember
year
being at
on.
those meetings, yep.
Bob?
David, all this looks great, but the towns, I don't think, the town of Bernardston's not gonna pay $222,000 more dollars. I don't know about Northfield paying $341,000 for that 7.63% increase. I mean, it's just ridiculous to even talk about this. You gotta figure out where you can cut money. That's the end of the story. You gotta figure out where you can cut, because you can bring it to the towns.
So on average, when we cut a teacher, what's our average savings? We've got experience in this from last year, and it cost us more than we thought to make a staff cut. But if, with 80% of our budget being,
How many did we add back this year already, though? Teachers. I've heard several mentioned tonight. They're in this current budget.
I had, Northfield had to add a teacher in the last couple weeks of August. We had 20 new students above what we had anticipated enrolled.
So your class sizes are what?
But they vary greatly from pre-K to 6.
What's your biggest class?
Right now, 25
That's just the reality of the world.
in kindergarten.
well, that's two, the Bernardston.
How many are we truly down, though? Does Ruth know?
Down what?
How many did we add back into the budget?
I know, I'll
from the
find
last
out.
couple?
I didn't come with that
I don't think
level of
anybody has a clue.
specificity.
Can you give me a ballpark, though, on, I mean, 75,000, 90,000,
Can I just,
20,000?
I have a number here that I put in my, when we cut last year at Pioneer.
I'm looking
The
at that right
teacher
now.
salary line item went down
He's got-
$383,000 with all the
Didn't we
teachers we
find
cut
what was
last year
on
at
there?
Pioneer.
So-
Down from 17 to 18, 383.
I had FY 16, 17, FY 17, 2,486,457, and the next year, 2,173,408.
So it dropped how much?
383,000.
And that could be 6 or 7 teachers, 6 or 7 at the top
There were
of the scale.
11.
11?
11 cuts. Yeah.
So,
But how many of them
That's
are
what
still
it
cut?
says.
How many of them are still cut? That's what I want to know.
they're still cut. We didn't call back. We only called back one person because the person that took the job got another job somewhere else, and we called one person back. That was it.
So you're down in this school or in all schools, 10 people?
No, this school,
The high school, middle school.
high school, middle school. The problem is, it's just not that simple, because sure, at an elementary school, you can, it's really, they're all in one room doing this all day. But if you want to, if you want a program where kids and people want to come, then it's a different ballpark. So yes, we could easily cut staff. We could cut our art program, we could cut our music program and our band program. And the reason I say that, not that I in a million years think that we should do that, but because of our declining enrollments, their courses aren't full. And so, but the minute you start taking away those kind of things, then kids won't come. But if you don't have a full load, or it's a partial load, or we're trying to, navigate to get things, then if we're just looking at trying to reduce dollars, it's really easy to do. We could cut certain teachers, we could load up the classes, we could not have as many options for our kids. We could just have, read, write, math and call it a day. Maybe try to keep the sports program. It's just not that simple. When you have parents out there saying, I want my kids to have AP courses, I want them to be ready to go to college, but, we were gonna leave, but, to go to one of the area schools that they're offering 5, 6, 7 AP courses, they're offering, all this stuff. Well, okay, sure, we can get this budget down. We can get it so it's level funded, but I will guarantee you within 2 years, you're not gonna have kids here anymore. Because they come for the teachers, they come for the sports, they come for the AP courses, the academics, they come for learning about college and career. That's why they come here. And if we water down this program at the high school any less, you might as well just have a K-8 school, put them all up here and call it a day. And you'd have a great school for K-8 kids. But the district it's okay. We're going to have all 4 schools. We're going to keep running these schools, even though, Leiden, we're paying $16,000 per kid, and we're paying $8,000 in Bernardston. There's not equity anywhere here. There really isn't. And then when you have declining enrollments, you have 1 class per grade in elementary schools, your flexibility is completely gone. So if you have issues with kids, you gotta have a social worker, you have to have a nurse. All these resources, have you heard about all the addiction out there, the social emotional issues with our kids that are coming up? The classrooms are not the same. So do I support what Jean's done? Absolutely. Because kids are excited to come to school. They're excited about learning. They're a little annoyed that she's making them take more courses and stay in school and get the full mass core that they should have been doing 15 years ago. It's
Ruth,
not
I
that
don't disagree with
simple.
I don't disagree with anything you're saying, but last year we went through all this hullabaloo for the faculty at this school,
Yep.
cutting $383,000. Now you want to add back in $671,000.
But that 671 doesn't come from Pioneer completely. Mika, do you remember which it was? Because wasn't it was
How much for what?
for the increase. Remember, I think you had an increase and Jean had an increase.
Yeah,
You better start looking at shared services then too.
I think
That's the
Pioneer-
only thing you have left to look at. Nobody seems to want to keep that conversation going.
It's a great conversation. What did
And we
you
gotta
say?
get
you
driving.
I think Bob's point was, though, that 380-something thousand was the savings in salaries from cutting 11 teachers. Now, we did not impute the employer costs, which is substantial. If they were all on a family plan, it's almost 20,000 each as well. But just the same.
Right.
So
Right.
the real question is, do the towns have the appetite to fund this? And if not, we need to find where to cut.
Megan had her.
It's not totally appetite, it's ability.
Right. But so, instead of just continuing to cut, I think right now the program's good, it really is. And, okay, 600,000 is too much, I agree. But there are so many other ways that we can get there instead of just continuing to cut the internal and keeping all the structures of the facility that are not fully operating in place.
What are one of those so many ways?
Well,
it's-
Leiden is one way that's been on the conversation for a long time. We have more student choice kids coming in, and the kids that we have some significant issues that we have to take care of. To run that facility is expensive.
To the tune of
And Warwick
16,000
is
a
also running, there's a
30,000,
different
never mind
programming there.
16,000.
Using
Yeah,
her.
it's costing us, the district, double.
That's not going to get us there for next year's budget, though, folks. Thank you for this long-term planning information, but how the heck are we going to deal with the situation before us? I was hoping to come out of here with a strong sense of the town's willingness to I mean, it would be a lot less painful in a lot of ways to just come to the party with some more money. The $680,000 would cost Warwick $68,000. That'd be almost $1 on the tax rate, and we'd push it off for another year. And we already have the 11th highest tax rate, residential tax rate in the state. That's one route. That's the best case budget as far as the school and meeting the needs.
I mean, David, people called me last year and said, why are we not paying more to the school? We are paying more to the school, I said. We have never paid not more, ever. Since I've been on the select board, ever. We always pay more. And people go into the, you're chopping all these teachers, why? Why can't we have an increase in our taxes? We did, we paid more.
I also see that we have to remain very competitive and give the kids what they need. So everything that Ruth talked about is something that's vital for any school district to remain competitive with their neighboring school districts. We need to give that to our kids.
I would like to share my analysis of school choice and the incentive that it presents. The financially sound way to go is vote to offer school choice, have mediocre or worse schools, and have everybody choice out. Everybody. You know what? We could almost pay the bill with our local aid. We get almost enough local aid per student to pay that $5,000. That's the structure we're in. And we've built the school for years on a lot of school choice kids coming in, and it brought some additional revenue, but it didn't come close to average cost. We are operating in a scenario where financially the best thing going would be everybody choices out of your school. Everybody. You can't educate a kid for $5,000. Pardon me?
What would that do to state aid, though? You say it would cover it, but where would you get, you wouldn't get it if you were choicing the kids out.
Yes, every kid would be choiced out. The state aid would pay that bill, and we'd get our necessary assessment to do what little we were doing. I'm saying that the state aid would pay, well, you know, look at the net figure.
No, they
Divided
would-
by
they-
5,000.
yeah.
It would pay for educating every kid someplace else. That's ridiculous, but that is the structure. So,
So there's a meeting coming up, March 24th in the morning. School administrators and town administrators are invited. It's at GCC, it's 9:30 to 12:30. Tracy from Northfield and I will be getting a save the date notice out next week. And it will be an opportunity to, hopefully, a lot of our legislators will be there, but Paul Mark is going to be our facilitator. And this is a perfect thing to talk about, the odd bind that we're in financially in terms of formulas and plans like that. That's just one thing. Two other things I wanted to say. We are in this funny cart before the horse situation, or cart behind the horse or something, because we're talking to districts about sharing services while we're budgeting, and we don't know what we're budgeting for if we share services, right? And I know that Michael Sullivan at the steering committee meeting that we were at, Jean and I were there, he is trying to think globally. He said out loud, well, you know, you have a facilities manager, a food services person who that's not their expertise, and we have an expert food services manager. We need a curriculum coordinator. I'm trying to do that job in my district. And you have someone who's trained in Gail Healy who could be a curriculum coordinator. So he is trying to think about ways of more effectively using the resources we have to cover the needs that we have across our districts. I just don't know how to jive that thinking and planning that's going on with the actual budget that has to be planned and budgeted for while we do that thinking and planning. But anyway, that kind of thinking is going on. I don't know how to factor that into the process we're in. My other thing is, in an article recently in the paper where the Mohawk superintendent was reflecting on the sixth grade moving up, he was talking about them sort of tabling that plan, because by offering universal preschool in their towns, their enrollments are up. Now, I don't know how much money it would cost us to go from a pay-as-you-go preschool program in our towns to universal preschool, but it's definitely the direction we should be heading. Because families can't afford it, and it's our absolute best investment. The research is rock solid, totally clear. We will save money in the end if we get every single young child into a quality preschool program. So that's also another sort of larger future plan thing, but I know the early childhood grants have been dwindling and dwindling over the years. I don't know how dependent we are on them at this point, but we definitely should move in that direction. And I think, the whole idea of choicing all our kids out, part of what families look at when they buy homes in our towns is our schools, because that is the community base for a family when they join our towns. So I actually worked in the past in the Wendell New Salem School, where those two towns got together and built a beautiful school that they share. It's spectacular, and it didn't take away from either town. It can be done. I think Leiden, Bernardston could probably do that. When families are looking at a house in Leiden and they say, where do you go to school? Well, we have this great school. It's just over the line in Bernardston. It becomes the Bernardston-Leiden School, right? I mean, that can be done. But change is hard. And the Heart Committee is looking at getting data on what it would mean to close. Like actual data as opposed to just the emotional idea. That is part of our RFP.
We do have preschool, Leiden goes to preschool at Bernardston,
Mhm.
and Warwick goes to preschool
Yeah.
at Northfield.
Yeah. So our preschoolers are already sharing town sites. Yeah.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm sure these problems that we're having, thinking about joining schools together, are similar to what the people had when Pioneer joined, or Pioneer became Pioneer from the 4 towns. I mean, granted, it was 60 years ago, but I bet the feelings aren't a lot different than they were at that point. And it happened. So I think it happened slowly, but I think it's got to happen.
Definitely.
You keep talking about Gil Montague. What about the offer that Mahar made? I haven't heard anything about that, except for a brief mention of it back in either
We're following up
November or
on it.
December.
We are following up on it, both of those.
I've spoken to.
Are they going to come in and do a presentation like Gil Montague did?
Not at this point.
Not before the school committee, but some of us are meeting with them in the next week.
I liked what they presented. I got a copy of the written document, and I thought it was very impressive.
I believe Gil Montague spoke with us more about the grant and proceeding forward as opposed to discussing shared services at this
But the
time.
discussion included a lot of discussion on shared service.
Well, and the grant itself proposed the possibility of making this a
Right.
middle school element, or middle school.
But Mahar also has a grant, correct?
They do a regionalization grant.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
I just think you should, and I'm glad you're talking to him.
One of our big changes in our budget that happened last summer unexpectedly was a sped transportation challenge that we hadn't expected, right? And you can see that change in this budget. One of the things that we talked with Gil Montague about, and with all the districts we could talk about, is the sharing of specialized services for kids. And I didn't know if you, knowing where those expenses are coming from in our district, if, that kind of agreement or shared programming would reduce that special ed transportation.
Oh, no, we're going to fight that level at the state level. It's just horrific what they're doing.
With the
with
cost
regard
of
to,
special
yeah, I
ed.
mean, there's no caps, there's nothing,
Yeah,
it's,
yeah.
it's beyond ridiculous, but, I mean, I do have an idea, I don't know if it's gonna work or not, but, our current busing contract's gonna be up next year. We're putting together a bid, but, you know, I look around in these empty buses all day long. So I know at one point, you know, the historians here will tell me this, is that they used to all ride together. So this research shows that our high school, middle school kids should be coming to school a little bit later. It's better for them if they came a little later. And heaven knows that parents want their little guys, you know, out of the school, to school a little bit earlier. It would make sense. And I was gonna look into, and I'm not gonna ask the bus company because they never will give you a cut that you really wanna hear. So I'm gonna look into having all the kids ride together, K to 12. And so Leiden will pick up all their kids, swing by, either Leiden or Bernardston, depending on if anybody makes a shift there, drop the kids off and then go to Pioneer and have, you know, and then this way you can also, because Bernardston, not so much probably Bernardston, but Northfield and Leiden, they might be able to pick up some kids because they know there's one bus that's packed. And so why don't we just bus them all? But what that'll do is, because we get charged per mile, that'll cut all our miles by 50%. So we should see a reduction, and potentially, I still say you can cut one more bus. So if we can do that, that might help, and it's not going to take away from the kids. But I gotta spend some time in researching.
One of the ideas that was discussed a little bit more at length at the steering committee meeting was looking at transportation and how combining transportation to, say, a drop-off at Pioneer, then kids going to Tech, staying on the bus, and then being dropped off at Tech. It would take some negotiating as far as bells and school start times, etc., but that makes a lot of sense.
Right, it makes perfect sense because they go pick up from every one of our towns.
Yeah, so that was one of the
Yeah, they're talking about getting
priorities.
some routing software to try to help the bus company plan on combining all routes.
The bus company will not do it. When I was in Narragansett, I tried, I'm like, okay, this guy's not being truthful. And I got a software program, but my best source was a woman in the office that lived in town forever, and she knew where all the kids were, and so we plotted it all out, and we cut 3 buses. The guy was livid, but I didn't care. So I know the savings there, it's just that everything's time. But I'd rather be, you know, have not empty buses and have an extra teacher in the classroom here.
Should we look at possibly getting into the bus business for our special needs transportation? Sometimes when pricing of vendors is too high, there's a number of things we do in my town with our own employees much more cost effectively than hiring
So
someone else.
Well, and a lot of the districts have like gone out to bid and asked for certain things, and they've joined together if their kids are going. The severity of the kids and the reason that they need transportation is they really need a small specialized, yeah. So it's much more difficult. You can't like just get a minibus and put a bunch of them on, or even the vans. It's the cost of those vans. So maybe, I don't know how many vans we use, maybe owning a few vans and hiring somebody that has a specialty to be able to, not too much, to drive these kids. It's gotta be cheaper.
And might, as well as having that license, have the ability to be useful to us with that population during the day. You might actually find somebody who's capable of driving a bus and also has a relationship with these kids in the classroom.
Right. And you also.
We're over a
trips
barrel
and-
on this
all right.
thing.
Transportation, if we
too
could
much.
shop it down, it would solve the problem.
But then would the state give us less too?
Huh?
But then would the state
No,
give
it's
us
still
less?
the same percentage of
Yeah.
what we spend.
I'm from Warwick. Yeah, I don't know, have we discussed the added cost of getting rid of the school lunch deficit? Because I know that in combination with an increase in the school assessment, that that's going to cause a lot of resentment, and they may just balk at it. I don't know. I mean, it looks like the two of them combined are probably going to be over, probably about $1.20 added to our tax assessment. And that's significant. Yeah. I don't know, it's just something to think about.
There was an indication given by Northfield Finance Committee and Bernardston that it might be preferable to spread the pay down of that deficit over 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
What I would say in reply is that it would do our district an awful lot of financial good to get rid of that deficit, because it will dollar for dollar increase the E&D. We will come out from underwater to actually having a little bit of school free cash, and it would affect our financials tremendously. So I would really like to see this taken care of in 1 year, but it's got to be done in the context of this is not coming back. We're not going to be back to the parent for a bailout again. We've straightened ourselves out and we're independent. The advantage of a supplemental appropriation, in my mind, is that towns have no say in how the school committee spends their money. With a supplemental appropriation for this purpose, towns will be guaranteed this is how it will be spent, and it will be spent on nothing else. I hope towns could, maybe we could find a way to structure it so towns who feel they could pay it down in one swoop could, and they could get a assurance that they have met their obligation, and we're waiting for the others to come in over time. But every dollar we can pay down there will make our balance sheet look a lot better.
Well, you could handle it the same way you handled the tech loan. The $400,000 that you spent on technology that 1 year, you took a loan and then we paid it, well, we're paying it over 3 years. I think this is the 3rd year coming up.
Right, that's the way to do it. Just get all 4 towns to agree.
Because I just calculated what Bernardston's share of $260,000 would be. And it's $93,000. And I can guarantee you that's not going in our budget.
What is the figure now? The last I saw it was 240 some odd thousand for the deficit.
It's between that and 250,000, somewhere in between, those two.
So when we talk about anything to do with Pioneer and Northfield, we kind of just consider 50%, because that's the way it runs.
Yes.
That'd be devastating for us to come up with in 1 year. Now, read enough in the papers to know that we've lost the campus taxes. They're tax exempt already. While we never used that money for the operating budget, it did give us a chance to catch up on capital items, infrastructure needs, and that sort of thing. With that tax money gone, those needs are still going to have to come out of whatever tax money we have. And we already people are enraged at their tax bills. So while you're making good points about the need, and that attracts the students and so forth, the taxpayers, if they aren't parents of students, they're objecting.
Lois, what's your recommendation for a budget? We've got the blue sky budget, we've got the $400,000 cut, or we've got the $680,000 cut. What should this committee be working toward?
Well, we're meeting already with our local departments, and the letter that we sent out and asking for budgets asked them to keep it at level services for this next year. And they've been good. They've been really good about it, which it sort of translated into almost level money, really, for that. So it's going to not set well with them if we say, okay, but we can give the school a lot more. So, I don't know, you've got a difficult situation here to keep the school up so that we do attract students. You know, but I just think there's going to be a rebellion on paying a lot more.
Well, I think going along with that, we saw the same, we are seeing the same thing in the Finance Committee in Bernardston. Everybody's very conservative. And I think that as our tax rates go up, moving into our towns becomes less attractive regardless of what the school looks like.
The other thing that comes into play when we talk about educational money is that other piece of the puzzle that is the tech school. And I think when we prepare our budget and present it to the select boards or finance committees or whatever, I mean, I heard from a finance committee person in Northfield that the only reason they didn't ever question the tech school is because when they came in, they had everything down perfect that they presented, and ours had holes in it. So we need to make darn sure that when we go to our finance committee members, towns, that we don't have any holes, that we have the information, we have it up front, and we do a good job at presentation, because
You're also very late
we are.
every year, and this year it's worse. Tech's already voted their budget.
Exactly.
Well, you know
A lot
why?
of other towns have.
They don't go over. They're not asking for additional assessments.
Well,
They live
get-
by their assessments.
I used to
It's pretty
serve on
easy.
that committee
Yep.
way back, and they get to work on it in the fall. They don't wait till January or the end of December to start. They stay on top of things.
Well,
You guys seem to like to push at the last minute to do things. And I'm not just talking about budget. I've been coming to your meetings for years and been frustrated by how you can say, well, let's talk about that next month. Well, we need to talk about this someday. When is someday? You've got to act earlier so you can be more efficient. Sorry, that's my lecture for the night.
So what's your guidance besides get it done?
Start earlier.
Well, what's your guidance in terms of what we can do? We could say we're done here with the blue sky budget, vote that, and see what happens. We're trying to work with the towns more closely to make something acceptable happen. And part of our judgment was that the revenue picture is so unknown when we budget early, that it makes some sense. So we have a budget scenario. It involves not making $680,000 in cuts and some substantial increases. As a school committee member in service to the mission, I think that's the budget we should get. But I also politically think that it's unlikely to obtain. So we're trying to balance these interests. I want to give Jane a chance to say, go for the 400,000, cut 680.
I think I could sell my committee on the middle road. I'm not positive, because that's 30 cents on the tax rate in Bernardston.
Sue?
I need to
Thank you,
know
Jane.
what happened in these budgets, like what is the $400,000 cut? I can't just.
Oh, we don't know that
We don't
yet.
know it.
We're trying to we're having this pre-hearing to
Right.
find out what we're aiming for. So much of the time, we have aimed for a crash landing at the end of the runway.
Okay.
And I would like us to,
That's what
I would like us to
Right.
raise our horizon a bit, so we've got a little bit of margin for error. But we're having this hearing coming into the process rather than come through the other end with a blue sky budget, hold this hearing in this room, and hear everybody's comments after we're done.
Okay, got it.
Lois, please.
You know, what Pat's referring to, I think, is last Monday night, we had a finance committee meeting, and we had our select board there for their budget, and they stayed. We had the superintendent of the tech school there and the business manager, and it was a very professional presentation. One thing they did comment on, aside from money, was, and I have missed a lot of your meetings here, but they said enrollment is down in all of Franklin County, all of the Franklin County schools. Whereas back when I was here more of the time, we were talking about what's causing the decrease at Pioneer or in our schools. But it's everywhere in the county. We don't have the industry, we don't have the jobs to attract the people moving in here. But with what Jane's saying, we don't put a budget, the Finance Committee in Northfield does not put a budget together until we get all the requests from all our departments, the schools, the county government, the COG, whatever. And so it's very difficult to get it at the last, what we call the last minute, and then have to put it together in a hurry. We don't like that. And with our town meeting the first week in May, we really need to back up a month to have everything finished, because it's got to go to the town council for review, it's got to go for printing, we've got to have time for publicity and all that, and we've got to have time for somebody, the administrator, to draw warrant, do the motions and all that sort of thing. So we're shooting for a target of a month ahead of us, say 1st of April. And if we don't get all our figures until the end of March, it just makes it almost impossible to do a good job on reviewing everything. So I think that's what you're referring to. So that, in other words, the sooner the better.
Well, I think it'll be a fool's errand at this point to try and cut $680,000 out of this budget. But if that's what the towns need to see, and that's what, at this time, you could model with that, and we will attempt it. That's what I've said we'd try, but it's going to be ugly. It's going to be really ugly.
Well, if you stick with the most desirable budget, this one, that's over $1 on our tax rate.
I understand.
Just for this school.
I understand.
Well, it's for the elementary
No,
school too.
just for this district.
Okay,
Not to
just
mention increases and insurance.
Excuse me, Jen, you said school, just for this school.
Well,
Just for this district.
district, whatever. I think of PVRS as a school, and I include all of the buildings in that.
You're pie in the sky to the town of Bernardston at $222,000. That's more than our police department budget. Just
I
that
need to
increase
know
for 1 year.
why the Pioneer salaries on the teachers line went up 10%. Teachers' wages go up about 3.5, the way I count it, because I see steps and COLAs as pay increases combined.
Well, steps are pay increases. That's exactly what they are.
Have you talked about a COLA for this year?
Next year is a new contract year, and we are beginning negotiations. And this budget will inform them. The way things work in the past is the association goes for and gets increases that are in excess of what town employees get year after year after year. And then when budgets can't maintain services, then we do reduction in forces at the least senior and lowest paid individuals. And that's the other piece of this. We're negotiating a 3-year contract, and if we give away the store, will be seeing massive cost increases or massive cuts in employment.
We realize some line items have to go up. We realize some line items in the school district are going to go up, but we've got to try to cut other line items to try to make up some of it. I mean, you think Jane and I are like, I mean, Brian's new, he's still listening. We get up.
He's pretty vocal.
Right, we get up and we're speaking against the school budget, the worst thing we want to do.
Right.
Because we believe in education. It's just,
You know, I'm sure all of the principals sees the benefits of what few field trips the kids do take. Last year, those were eliminated because there was no budget for transportation for field trips. So they hopefully put that back in their budgets for fiscal 19. I would love to see that stay, or a good portion of it anyway, because that's a whole learning experience for the students that gets cut.
like I said, we have no say in how you spend your money. You get to say, you get all the say. We don't get any say, excuse me. Don't say no say. Don't say no say in the paper. They don't get any say. We leave that up to you guys.
We should direct her to, when she makes quotes, correct people's English or grammar.
Exactly. Some people don't care.
No, sometimes this is kind of an aside, but sometimes I read what you quote and I think, I know that person, and they never would have said it that way.
All right, folks, I'm going to call for any last words and then conclude this informal hearing.
I think we made a couple. I think we made a few suggestions that you could look at, and that is, you know, do we need a full-time assistant superintendent? Can we share the Northfield and the Warwick principal as we do Bernardston and Lighton? And that, those two things could be a pretty good piece of change. Not enough, but something. And then all the other line items that everybody questions.
David, can I ask one other thing? How much do we get in grants now? I remember the old days, we used to get $1.5 million. This is many years ago.
We had
What do you get?
nothing.
Those are decades.
How much do we get, 500,000, 700,000?
No.
No.
Like what? How much?
So we got, the IPPL grant, we got 40,000. And the special ed grant, we were down, Chris says she thinks for next year is going to go under 300,000, so 290,000 maybe. That used to be much bigger. We have a Title I grant that doesn't even covers like maybe 3 or 4 teachers. Title I. Title II is next to nothing. A few, we can do some PD for the staff, maybe once or twice. That's about it for the grants we get. I mean, they are gone. And after next year, that preschool grant's totally gone. You know, so it's, you know, we're funding a lot of the preschool off of that grant, and then we use the money that we take in people coming to, you know, pay for preschool, and we were able to give some money to the 2 littler schools using that money, but it's just...
Most of the money goes for salaries, for hiring people to run those programs, would you say?
Pretty much, that's what it is, yeah.
Because Shelby writes an article on a big $7,000 grant, that's like a, you know, snowflake in a bucket.
Right, but
You know?
they have just dried up bad.
I just wanted to clarify, I looked up the Pioneer teacher salary numbers.
Yeah.
And I had the wrong number. I had the right number for FY17, which was 2,486,457. The actual number ending, I had an earlier number. So the actual number for FY18 was 1,833,000.
Right.
So that was a $653,457 decrease in teacher salaries at Pioneer in 1 year.
Can you say those figures, those
Yeah.
last figures again?
So FY17,
Uh-huh.
2486457. FY18, 1833000. 653,457.
That's just their salary, not counting.
That's just, so then there's the benefit savings, which ended up helping us with the transportation. I remember when we had this conversation around the
Right.
sped transportation bill all of a sudden. And Ruth said, well, I think we can cover that based on the savings on insurance for all the less people we have.
Right.
And it's-
Jane?
And what was the cost of paying out for accrued sick leave and any other benefits
That's why
that
we
they were
ran into
owed?
trouble at the end of the year, because they took a lot of money out, so that's where
Do we
it
know
was
that?
really tough.
Do we know a ballpark on that amount?
No, I do not.
Probably was 600,000,
The
right?
ballpark
Probably,
that
yes.
that school council gave me when I was discussing our balances was that you almost need to lay off 2 teachers to see the savings of the cost of 1 teacher, as a rule of thumb. I hope you can sharpen that, because that's,
And that included paying out
Ruth,
monies due.
Are we paying any benefits for the people that do not have jobs here, that did not find jobs? Do we know that?
No, we did.
I mean, if somebody's worked in the district for 20 years, they can retire and get insurance from this district until they're 65 years
But
old.
they did not.
Nobody.
No, the people that really were eligible left on their own accord, and they did not, they walked away from those benefits. I was shocked at the time, actually.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so no, it's really about doing things differently. It's like, yeah, we can cut some things that we wanted to put in to make things a little better, a little different, so that our kids can have access, like in Northfield, they're fighting over iPads and netbooks to provide for their kids. I mean, they have some cards, but the teachers they don't have the access they need to really provide technology for the kids. And we put that money in here to get some netbooks for, 2 cards. Wasn't big money. I think it was like $30,000, which is a lot, right? But what it would do academically for our kids was incredible, because that's where we're going. If we're going to stick with pencils and books and all of that, we're not going to provide what we really need to provide for you kids. It's a different world. We shouldn't be doing group instruction. We should be personalizing education for every one of these kids. And you have the teachers competent to do it. We don't have the materials and the things necessary to put in front of them to make it happen. And that's what's frustrating to me. And yes, we can get the budget down, and we can probably get it if we hold Jane to her word to the middle ground one that was like 4, 5, 6. That's okay, but every time we kick this can down the road and you don't make a global look at the district and say, what can we do differently, then nobody's going to really get the kind of education that the teachers are able to give. They're just not. And so, moving 6th grade up, moving 5th and 6th grade up, I don't know the answers. But somebody has to start talking about the question. Talking about the busing, talking about how are we going to change it?
Underwater.
But eventually, we're not going to be meeting the needs of your kids the way they need to be met. And the administrators are working hard with their teachers. It's not the staff. It's just not the staff. They're not the problem. You're not the problem either. It's thinking creatively and maybe making some tough calls that nobody wants to make, even though you've been talking for them the last 3 years that I've been here.
all right, I'm going to declare that the last word
good.
this evening.
Thanks, I left the last word.
And we will, I entertain a motion that we adjourn.
So moved.
A second.
There being no discussion, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? Thank you, everybody,
Jane
for
and
attending.
Lois want to stay.
Not unless we...
David. Should I call Dr. again, or are you going to put your foot on it?